Hello and welcome to the stream, everyone. I am happy to have the one, the only Johnny Chaos, who has been so good to grace this brand new channel with his presence. I've been listening to a lot of the smart things this man has said over the last couple of months, and so it gives me a lot of pleasure to have him on my channel and to have a conversation. I'm certainly excited about some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today.
Well, thanks for having me,
Okay.
Ben. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate your content, and it's good to see new channels that are reaching larger audiences. Eventually, you got the right material, and I think you're going to appeal to a lot of people. So I like your format. I like what you've been putting out there, and we need some more critical thinkers.
Definitely appreciate it. So I'm going to kick off, and I'm going to say that first and foremost, I think one of the things I like about listening to you the most is that you are not shy about communicating your conviction, your confidence about certain things. This whole ecosystem being one of them. And I know that certainly when you and I have spoken, you had mentioned that when you say so many smart things in a community, when you're right about so many things, you're undoubtedly going to garner a lot of followers, a lot of trust being put in you, and with that comes a lot of responsibility. And I know that part of your messaging really comes down to, yes, it's great, they love hearing what you say, but ultimately make sure you're doing your own due diligence, make sure you're learning and you're educating, because some of the things that are a no-brainer for us that may make sense to us may not make sense to someone else. And so it's always important to get as much of a holistic viewpoint on something before you start putting your money where your thoughts are kind of leading. So I love that. I love that about listening to you, though, because I'm much the same way. When it comes to conviction and confidence, I don't think it brings value to the table to sit on the fence and wonder and ideate about the what ifs too much, because there are already so many people doing that. And I think that if I have something, and you seem to be the same way, that if you're confident about something, if you have conviction and you are already kind of staking your own interest in there, then I'm going to convey that. I'm going to tell people that that is what I'm thinking. These are the reasons why. I'll go and listen to some other viewpoints if you want, the other side of that conversation, right?
Well, the thing is, when I started the Twitter account, it was me talking to my friends. My videos, you can look at my videos. I don't care about how I look. I just have a thought. I turn on my phone and, I make my statement and I'm done. Right. And it started out with me just talking to my friends. I don't know where the rest of the 16,000 people showed up from. I'm glad you must like the content, but I mean,
We did.
so I've never really changed that. And my goal was never to start a channel or get any likes or, uh, I didn't expect to be this involved, honestly. It was never my intent to be this involved. It was never my intent to get this kind of attention. And I mean, it's good, but but on the other hand, it's kind of weird, right? So my whole purpose was literally that I wanted to kind of put a stop to like the false narratives, and because I saw a lot of people following people that were just basically blatantly lying to them. So, I kind of wanted to put a squash to those false narratives. The idea was to not become a leader, but to help people learn the skills that they need to kind of navigate the bullshit.
Love that. And you're completely right. I think that, one of the things that puts a lot of people off within the crypto space is that there is a lot of bullshit, or there notoriously has been. So I'm not surprised that you've garnered the following that you have. When someone is speaking truth, right? Or someone is speaking in a bit more of a candid and direct manner about the things that they believe and their viewpoints, I think people in this space are getting smarter. And I think that, it's no longer the same old tripe that's going to work. I think that there is much more of a space now for folks who are coming to the table with logic, with sense, with a lot of those trust factors that a lot of people put a lot of stock in.
What I don't want to
So I was
see
going to say
is
too. I mean, one. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I think we have a bit of a
what
delay here, so
yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
What I don't want to see is I don't want to see our community replicate the birth of the influencers in 2017, where people have made a right decision, and since they made a right decision, they're just running with that one right decision that they made, and then now all of a sudden they're experts. I mean, that's what I don't want to see from our community. I don't want to see our community just think, okay, well, you know, what we're doing now is just like any other coin. It's not. What we've built here is something totally different. It was built on totally different principles. It's built on the ethos of inclusion. It's built on the ethos of long term delayed gratification behaviors, not trading, not lottery lump sum mentality. It was designed of, this is something that could literally set you financially free if you do it correctly. But if you treat it just like anything else, it's going to behave just like anything else. And because of that, you're not going to be any closer to financial freedom because your behaviors haven't changed. So if your behaviors don't change, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you don't learn the proper behaviors, it's not going to matter. If you can't get out of the lump sum mentality where you've got to be all in or all out and you're chasing the prices all the time and you're not thinking about your future, you're not going to get any closer to financial freedom. You're going to be doing the same shit for the next 10 years and still not be any closer or better off.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And so, I guess to jump in, I mean, let's talk about hex because for me, and my background, some of you may know, I come from more of a traditional finance background, and so I have never been the kind of person that has jumped on or leapt onto, the newest shiny object when it comes to cryptocurrency. I've been involved in the space, certainly on a personal level, some of which I've touched on in previous videos. But I will say that to me, and I think you communicate this very well. In fact, I think I've retweeted about 50% of your tweets because you do analogies very well. I think my favorite recently was holding the elevator door open for someone. And it's so true. Right now, you can lead a horse to water. And so, for me, Hex just makes a lot of sense right now. I think that, as I've started to learn more about the Hex ecosystem, as I've started to even go back, because I wasn't an OG hexagon by any means. So I've gone back and listened to a lot of the unique selling points that a Richard Hart has brought to the forefront, which seem like kind of older and tired now to a lot of people coming to this conversation. In that, the whole decentralized aspect of it, we're not viral yet, right? He said that a lot. We've got some real good price appreciation, and we're not viral yet. And to me, this couldn't ring truer. And I think a lot of people seem to be dismissing the fact that, relatively speaking, there is still a very small community around Hex right now. And I have seen firsthand just how powerful a network effect is. I come from a VC space where, after a certain point, network effect is all you have. Marketing is all you have. And I think that a lot of people seem to be misunderstanding that because we are now sat at a higher price point with Hex, they believe that it's maybe too late to get in, that they've missed the initial run up. All of this kind of FUD that is just, it's, I guess it's easy for me to judge because I've seen, the how much runway there is to go in so many different avenues. But my response to people asking me if it's still a good time to get into Hex is just, we haven't seen anything yet. The network effect, when you have a basis of more people who are speaking intelligently about something, and they are telling more people, and they are telling more people, that in itself is a much more powerful vehicle than starting at a slightly higher price point than when the project first came to inception, right? And it's astronomical to me how people seem to be just devaluing how much momentum and how much that snowball effect can take form.
It's deal bias, man. It's deal bias. You don't know when you're getting a good deal, when and it's perception of value. So if you're not paying a lot for something, you don't value it. It's like, okay, well, these, I did an analogy a long time ago that was really, everybody was really loved, which was I turned marbles into diamonds, and I showed them, you thought you bought some marbles, but really, actuality, these marbles were diamonds all along. You just didn't know it because you saw marbles where there were diamonds, and that's because you enter
Yep.
at the point that you enter. What you pay is what you think it's worth. That's what you think. You don't know how someone else is gonna value it later down the road, and you can't perceive that. There was a Bitcoin conference in 2000. I don't know. Bitcoin was $100 at the time, right? Andreas Antonopoulos was talking to an empty room. There was like two people in 50 seats. I mean, our average meetups are 50 people, right? Just an
Yeah.
average meetup is 50 plus people. So we have a lot going for us. We have a lot more reach than Bitcoin ever had at its very beginning, right? And if you look, were you too late to buy Bitcoin for $100? Were you too late to buy it for $200, three, four, five, even $1,000? Were you too late to Bitcoin? So if you tried to tell the truest of true believers that Bitcoin was going to be $1 trillion market cap and it was going to be $70,000, they would have laughed at you back then, because those are
Yep.
unfathomable, unreasonable prices that they would have never considered back then. Now, sure, they can go back and say, oh, yeah, I knew it all along. But that's, again, justifying making the right choices after the fact. They're justifying making right choices after the fact. Okay. The guy that forgot that he held Bitcoin did better than the guys that built businesses on it. The guy that forgot that he held Bitcoin did better than people that were trying to trade, because they lost millions and millions of coins in trading and liquidations, right? And so what you end up with is the survivors. A lot of them are the guys that forgot they even had any Bitcoin. They're like, oh shit, I got some of that. Let me go check it out. And next thing you know, we've got the crypto space as we know it, where we've got all these gurus and fake gurus trying to justify their existence by explaining why things that they don't even know. They're trying to justify why they believe it has value instead of what actually happened. They're not looking at the cause and effect. They're just looking at, well, this happened, so now I got to justify it.
Totally agreed. And I think we're on the same page when it comes to really simplifying your strategy, right? And I think that I learned that the hard way. You may have, I'm not sure if you heard me speaking about this previously, but my entry point after the first kind of cycle that I came into crypto, I thought I'd outsmart the system. And so I decided to put quite a hefty amount of money towards a starting a crypto mining farm in another country that shan't be named, but I had an in with some warehouses, and so I ordered a big ton of machines from China. I had them come in. I had them set up in this country where electricity was making things very cost effective for me. By the time you set those machines up, they've already aged dramatically. The algorithms and the work that they're putting in are already being replaced by some new. They know what they're doing when they're selling machines. And so by the time I had set this up, my plan of outsmarting the system and really looking to mine, before proof of stake was a thing, I was doing Bitcoin, I was doing Ethereum. At that point, as things started going about 6 months later, the government of this country came in, took my machines away. And so I did manage to keep a little bit of it, but it wasn't a big amount. My point being that during that whole phase, if I had taken that same money and simplified and really restricted the amount of anxiety and stress and logistics that went into play, I would have come out way ahead. I would have made so much more money, even if those machines had been operating at full capacity until they burned out and they weren't any longer usable. It was just an eye opener for me, and so really kind of curtailed the way that I was looking at projects. Right, and I know this is an easy thing to say, but this is why something like a hex stands out to me, because there are so many indicators that this, firstly, is something that should be around for a long time. There's a lot of motivating factors as to why that's a good idea. And the people who are the most vested, the whales, are motivated to have this thing be a success for a long time. But then, we have this catalyst coming up. And this kind of leads me into a question for you. And I know that you
Oh,
are not.
before you get there,
Sorry.
I want to talk about your mining thing. I had an opportunity to buy several skids of miners before I got into Hex.
Sure.
And I was looking at the prices and the power costs and the facility costs, and I went, you have to ask yourself a question. Wait a second. Why exactly do I have to pay some company for this specific equipment to mine this thing in order to pay power bills? I mean, you just have to look at that logically for a second. What exactly is the code doing? The code is creating coins. Why can there not be a different distribution method? Why can't you assign, it's like, okay, everybody at the bar standing on your left foot, you get served, but everybody standing on your right foot can't. You can change that action, right? And that's all Hex really did, was it changed it from mining to staking without the energy costs. That's all Hex actually really did. And that just
Huge.
blows everybody's freaking minds because they don't understand, because that energy cost, they've made so many excuses to justify that energy cost and justify the sell of their shovels. Who made money in the gold rush? The people selling the shovels. Who makes the money in
Yep.
Bitcoin? The people selling the miners. That's who's making the
Yep.
money, right? And when Bitcoin first started out, okay, everybody could run it from their own computer. Everybody could run it from their own computer. There wasn't miner specific hardware. There weren't the ASICs. That was fair distribution, okay? And that was great that everybody could mine a little. But then what happened was it became centralized. The decentralized cryptocurrency became centralized now that only two companies own all of the freaking hash rate. And
Yeah.
then two companies make all of the mining hardware. So you are no longer a participant in the ecosystem. You're just a consumer. If you're not producing, you are just the consumer. And all hex stakers, we're all producers. And we're able to do that without paying some company for specific equipment and without, paying the electric company for large bills. It's that simple.
And that's huge. That is absolutely huge. And having lived through that, it's huge. I thought it was a good idea. It wasn't. Unless you are essentially a mining conglomerate, it doesn't make financial sense.
And
And
it's still
also,
wasteful. They 200 million a month of sell pressure. Nobody takes that into consideration either. People are like, "Oh my God,
not at
look,
all.
this hex stake with 100,000 is just unstaked." Okay, you got sell pressure for one day. Now imagine you have $250 million worth of sell pressure every month just to maintain the price. Think about that. It has to be sold because they have to pay their power bills. Hex does not have to be sold. You can sell it, you can take your profit, and then you can earn less next time because you don't have enough to buy your T shares back. It's a self balancing system, as where the miners constantly have to sell just for upkeep. That's overhead. Hex does not have that overhead, that externality. And because and the reason why people don't get it is because they have justified those expenses, and most people are programmed, there has to be loss for gain, there has to be loss for gain. Tell that to the government, they print as much money as they freaking want. At least Hex has a
Yep.
code where the inflation is locked at a set point. The government just prints what they want. In fact, they don't even print it. You know what they do? They give you a zero in your account. That's what they do. Their
Yeah.
net product is zeros. They just hand them out to the banks, hand them out to their buddies, handing out zeros everywhere. There you go. No cap, no limit.
You see, there we go again. You have a great knack, and I've said this before in a previous video too. A very good ability in unearthing, at first glance, what are hidden value propositions, and then communicating them in a way that is digestible, and that is key because you're right. A lot of that mentality that I guess Richard has been saying for a while, albeit perhaps in different wording, but when people truly understand that, without the rest of these catalysts in place, right? Without any of the recent more kind of, I guess, in the moment selling points, that in itself, that moving away from mining is so huge, and for something that is, I think, going to prove to be a fantastic store of value going forward. It's huge because it does bring a lot of price stability to Hex, and without that buying pressure, and with a lot of the catalysts that we'll probably talk about as well, there's a lot of upward momentum to be had, and these are all things that have continuously kind of fed my confidence in this. I was going to
There's
say on that note. Oh,
there's
sorry. Go
there's
ahead.
all
Go ahead.
these myths. There's all these myths in crypto, and you have to be able to get through these myths because it's a whole mythology of things that people believe matter because they've been told they matter, and then they don't really
Right.
understand how to get around that belief system. It's almost like its own dogma, right? Like market cap. Market cap's a big issue for people until you really understand that even the market cap sites don't use it. Until you understand that it's
Yeah.
not a limiter because Bitcoin breaks it every 4 years. It's really just an arbitrage number that they made to create a list so they can sell you advertisements by sending you to their website so you can view those lists and view their advertisements. So and it's more than that, but the point being that the market cap sites don't even use market cap wire you. Volume. Volume is spoofed. It's reported by exchanges to create an appearance of interest in currencies they may not have any interest in them whatsoever. But you have to take those exchanges at their word for what they're reporting to the sites that you are reading that can and will change and manipulate numbers to their benefit. Okay. And there's nothing to stop them from doing that. In fact, we're still under litigation with CoinMarketCap for literally manually locking hex on page 3 under 201, even though it has yeah, even though it has met all the requirements. So
and
they're
and and
trying to
and
hide
that
it
in
because there's
itself,
no benefit to them.
yeah, and that in itself is a relatively new narrative, right? That will only gain
Mhm.
momentum going forward. Because now I think, and it's news to a lot of people. A lot of people in my network, again, a lot of folks that I know in real life who have that traditional financial background, you start talking to them about how unimportant market cap is, and it's like you're speaking an alien language. I think there is one
Oh yeah,
thing, yeah, there's one thing in this hex community specifically that has shown, really an evolution in thinking, and one that's going to be hugely important for anyone kind of to get a step ahead in the next bull market, is just how arbitrary that number is for all the reasons you outlined. And institutions have been using this for a while, but anyone who has been, had a trading background or any kind of, traditional VC or really, traditional finance in general, it's an alien concept to them, and it is going to take a little while for that narrative to be drilled home. But it's already happening. I was one of those people. And so for me, I'll openly admit that market cap being as unimportant as it is was something that I've learned kind of relatively recently, in the last year or so, as we started talking about, this new ecosystem coming to fruition. And that's huge
if you
again.
create a
That's another thing.
belief, yeah, Ben, if you create a belief, it becomes relevant because it's a belief. So that's what it comes down to. Is since the culture of crypto has created the fact that this market cap has been promoted by all these influencers. Everyone goes and checks their numbers. They pull it up on screen because they're paid to, right? They're paid by their sponsors to send people to their website so that they can see the
Of
ads
course.
and they can click the ads and everybody gets paid. The whole crypto system has been pay to play for a very long time. In order to get an exchange listing, used to be your coin would not succeed unless you got an exchange listing. In order to get those exchange listings, it was a pay for play system, cost millions of dollars. Plus, you had to
Yep.
give them an allocation of your coins just to get listed. If you wanted an influencer to talk about it, you had to give them an allocation of the coins, and they charge you upwards of $20,000 for a review. That was their business model. Okay.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, they took sponsorships like CoinMarketCap, CoinDesk, Cointelegram, and they took sponsorships from them to report the news they were paid to report. Their opinions were for sale. They were paid to report and do positive reviews. Okay. And not only that, later we found out, guess what? They could be paid for negative reviews too. And that's where a lot of the attacks came from Hex initially. Okay.
Yeah.
From the start. From the start. But we don't have to dig too deep into that. But the thing with market cap is it is different from the crypto perspective from the traditional markets. But because they call it the same thing, you expect, oh, well, then I go over here and I look at the market cap, and I'm used to looking at market cap, so let me look at it here. Let me explain to you in crypto. I have 1 trillion coins. I sell one to myself for $1, and I never sell another coin. I now have $1 trillion market cap. Do you trust market cap?
Right.
Because that's how it
Yeah.
works. Okay. If I sell 1 trillion coins and I buy all the coins back at 99 cents, but I put some on the market and I've got $100 there, and then I can spoof my own volume by trading my own stuff back and forth over and over and over again. No one could be buying those coins but me. You wouldn't know, especially on a centralized exchange, because centralized exchanges are all backroom stuff. Okay. DEXs are online exchanges. You cannot execute an action without paying a gas fee. So you would run out of money doing that on a DEX. So the volume on DEXs is very real, and the volume reported by centralized exchanges is very fake. Very fake. Okay. So they can create that idea, and you'll hear people say, but there's no volume. Okay. No volume is according to what? The fake volume that you're comparing it to? And
Right.
decentralization myth. Let's do the decentralization myth. Do you know there's no such thing as an ERC20 token that is successful, that 90% of the supply isn't owned in the top 100 wallets?
Mm. I
Bet you didn't
remember
know.
you saying this actually. I didn't know that before.
That is actually the truth. And you can look it
Right.
up by looking up, going on the Etherscan, typing in the name of the ERC20 token, clicking on holders, and then you click on chart below that, and you will see that that's the truth. In fact, BNB, BNB, until recently, because I pointed it out, until recently, they held 99.25% in the top 100 wallets. And then I made a post about it. Now they have transferred that out into some daughter addresses, and now it says they only own about 70%. Top 100 wallets only own about 70%, but literally 99.25%. Now, why would they do that? Because they will create an asset that has a market cap, a high market cap, and then they don't sell any more coins. They don't have to, right? They've already established a price point. Now they go to get their loan and they say, guess what, guys? I've got this asset. Look, they're $300 a coin. Nobody owns them but me, but they're $300 a coin. I would like to get a loan for my $300 million worth of coins. And that's what they do. And that's where they make their money. You see, they don't need to sell you coins. They use that as leverage. So they are using some of the financial, traditional financial stuff to draw money in by
Of
creating these
course.
things and spoofing them like they do. And there's so much corruption in this space, you wouldn't believe it. You know, so it's really refreshing to have something that is code that I run myself and make my own coins. That's it. That's what Hex is. It's code you run yourself. It has a set of rules, and you produce coins according to that set of rules. It punishes people who don't honor their obligations, who lie and try to cheat the system, and it rewards those who actually do what they freaking gonna do. And that's it. That's why I like it so
Totally.
much.
Me, and I think we're on the same page there. And I noticed also too, as we were talking about market cap, there, someone had mentioned in the comments that market cap matters and it's not a conspiracy theory. And I want to explain that we're not saying that market cap is a conspiracy theory. There are uses for market cap. What we're saying is it's not as important a measurement point to plot a course in crypto, because there is a gray area between, as you kind of mentioned, between traditional finance and crypto. There are ways in which different metrics are used to leverage interest, are really used to inject fiat capital more than anything, right? Back in or into the crypto realm. And so it is definitely important for anyone listening to this to not think that, we're not building market cap up to be some evil beast, but it
No,
doesn't have
it's
anywhere
just
near
not
the importance it
relevant.
does.
So
Exactly.
you got two metrics. You've got supply and you've got last price, and then you multiply it. Okay. Let me tell you this. What is the current Bitcoin market cap? Do you know? It's
I
roughly about
don't.
$1 trillion. Okay.
Yeah,
Guess
I believe
what?
that.
If you sell 16,000 Bitcoin on the market right now, you're down sub $1,000.
Right.
So where did the $1 trillion market cap go? There's only
Exactly.
about 16,000 or 16,000 Bitcoin worth of orders across all of the exchanges. Okay, it doesn't take all 17 million of the Bitcoin to move the price down to $1,000. Okay, the reason it doesn't go down is because people aren't selling it in masses and clearing out the order books. If they were to, you would see a significant drop in market cap, and market cap is a force multiplier. So it's an exponential number that can never be achieved. Okay. You can't sell all of your coins all at once and make that market cap, because the minute you sell the first coin, the price goes
Price is
down.
moving.
Right. You
Right.
sell the
Yep.
next coin, the price goes down. Now, because of Bitcoin's deep liquidity, you don't see it as much, right? But you can see it very well with something with low liquidity like Hex, when a small buy can skyrocket the price of it. And because it's got such a large supply, when that price skyrockets, times that large supply, the that's about right. The market cap increases exponentially. Now, if you turn around and you try to sell 100 million hex on the market right away, you're not going to get, that 5 cent price. It's going to go all the way down to 4 cents, maybe down to 3 cents, right? You're
Yeah.
not going to get that price. So you're not actually, that market cap is never achievable. It's an unachievable number that you cannot sell for. It's an exponential multiplier. And the reason where market cap comes from is something that doesn't have features. You got two features. You got supply and you've got price. So what do? You multiply the two things together, and then you come up with this arbitrary number. Its
Right.
significance can affect people mentally because they're looking at that because they see it as a value indicator. Okay. But in actuality, it's an unachievable arbitrary number that can never be achieved.
And it's one measurement that we're certainly not
Yeah.
opposed to taking advantage of if these listing sites would actually list it, given the same parameters that they're judging all other market caps at.
But they cheat
Great.
us. They deduct half our supply, and then they'll probably take another half out because they want their top coins to win. It's literally market cap sites. They always want Bitcoin to be number one because those guys are their biggest sponsors and their biggest fans. So they got to keep Bitcoin at number one because that's going to upset the world. Let me tell you right now, if Pulse's market cap is calculated correctly, it destroys market cap. It destroys market cap out of the water. Why? Because it starts with 150 trillion coins. It only has to go up to 0.00001, and then you got $1 trillion market cap, right? So I don't know if I got all my zeros in there, but you get the point. It could be a fraction of a penny, and you would still have $1 trillion market cap based on the supply times the price. So what you should look at actually is not circulating supply, but available supply.
Right.
The number you really should look at is available supply. How many of these are in the case and available for sale at any given time? Okay. That would be a more accurate number to look at than to look at the overall supply, because market cap in essence is you're counting the diamonds in the mine. Some of that's for sale, some of that's not for sale. The only diamonds that actually matter are the ones that are in the case and are available for purchase. That's what affects the price. It's not the overall market cap. It is actually just the available supply.
Totally agree. So I guess moving on a little bit, one topic I really wanted to touch on, because I know you've talked about this ad nauseum recently too, is this notion of liquidity bonding, right? And so we don't have to go down that huge rabbit hole that it inevitably is. Essentially what this means to anyone who hasn't heard this is, certainly in terms for hex holders or people interested in this ecosystem, as the rest of this ecosystem comes to fruition and prices start to move, as we see a rise in price for the rest of the ecosystem, pulsex, pulsechain, phex, inevitably hex is going to be driven up with that as well, because they are so intrinsically joined that economic energy is going to have that effect on the rest of the ecosystem too. And so, I mean, I heard you say this too, which was that, it was a notion that you had, and you haven't been able to poke holes in it or find, any reasons why it's wrong right now. And me too. I'm pretty
It's frustrating. I want to find the holes. I want to find the holes. Everybody's got a different version of how they think it's going to go down, but nobody's arguing with me on whether or not it's going to go down. Everyone's got a different version.
I think
when they think it will happen, but
well, for sure. And I also can't help but agree. I think I heard you mention before, correct me if I'm wrong, but talking about just we could potentially be looking at a rapid timeline to parity between both, purely because it's not in our control. It's within the best interests of the big money movers who want to see that parity take place. And I am firmly in that camp. I think that, a lot of people who are hoping to get, cheap hex on one chain or the other, or, see one chain do supremely better, maybe the old hex, the e-hex kind of fall off the radar a little bit. I really don't think so. And I think that, this whole bonded liquidity notion brings a lot more clarity to that for me and helps me look through a different lens, which again, without hearing you kind of, ideate that out loud, I guess it was not on my radar. So, but yeah, I mean, it's feeding into my whole kind of positive ethos, even more so. And I was already pumped to begin with, but But yeah, and anything else you wanted to touch on that? I know that you've talked again at nauseum on this, so I don't want to force you down that
Oh, I
into
know
that
you want me to go
pigeonhole. If I,
through it. I'll try to do this kind of in the Richard way. This is how Richard would do it, right? He'd say, look, a thing is equal to what a thing can be traded for, right? And they're bonded
yep,
because if you could take this thing and trade it for these things, and you get exponentially more of these things, they move together. But
yep,
that's kind of how he likes to break it down. But really, what it comes down to is with the birth of the decentralized exchanges and the Y times X equals K automated market maker in the DEXs, what you basically have is essentially you've got two cups. In one cup, you've got the one coin, and one cup, you've got the other. Okay. Now, how much is in the cup, which would be the liquidity. Okay. And that liquidity could be a large number or a small number. Okay. But how the equation works is if you 2x one side, you 4x the price of the other thing. Okay. So if you match the liquidity in the one cup, then the price of the other will 4x. Okay. And that's just how the equation plays out. Now, liquidity bonding, you know, with USDC, we have a low liquidity bonding, and that causes we have low liquidity. There's not a lot of hex available uh, in exchange for USDC, and because of that, you have to put a lot of USDC into the pool, which makes hex's price go up really high, really fast, because you have to be able to. There's not a lot of hex available. To take that hex out, you have to match the USDC side. So to get half of the hex that's in the pool right now, you would have to match half the liquidity on the other side, and then that changes the bonding ratio. But
right.
I know I
It's hard.
had
It's
it down
hard to make it
here.
digestible. I completely get that too, because
Yeah,
it is a rabbit hole and there is a lot of nuance to that. But I guess as an overview for everyone, I mean, it really does mean that existing hex, is going to benefit greatly, potentially more so than some of the initial or all of the price appreciation that we see with the rest of the ecosystem.
the,
And
the
it's
the
powerful.
Ben, the thing that matters most is the liquidity and the routing. Everything else is just narrative. Okay. It doesn't matter what its use
Yep.
case is. It really matters how many of those things it's paired to, what the ratio is, and if that ratio is immovable. If there's so many coins in there that nobody has enough coins to match one of the sides, you cannot move that ratio. And who has the majority of the new coins? If you're setting up a new candy store, you get to set the prices. Nobody gets to come in and tell you what those prices can be. And you can set it up
Yep.
pretty much any way that you want it to. So we don't know how those pools are going to be set up. So it's frustrating for me to watch people out there speculating on this coin's better than this coin, because it doesn't matter. Because if they're routed properly, when the train moves, everything moves. Every car ahead of that caboose moves with it. You can't move one without the other if the bonding and routing is set up properly. And it's I've actually been talking about this for over a year, and nobody was listening to me. They're like, Johnny, you crazy, just go over there in the corner. Finally people are actually listening to it a little bit, and they're realizing that, oh yeah, Richard did say this. Oh, Richard did say that. Oh, that makes sense. That does fit with this. That does fit with that. So whoever opens the candy store gets to set the prices where they want initially. Now, as far as the other tokens, the other ERC20 tokens, that is going to be pulled over. Okay. Those
Right.
ratios are going to be pulled over and diluted. But the coins that don't exist yet, somebody has to set those up. Somebody has to set those ratios. And the
Right.
thing that you like most is, like I said, if you look at apex.win right now, basically one hex is worth like 200 pulse. So if pulse moves a penny, that means hex moves $2.
Yeah.
If the liquidity pools are thick, you can't stop that from happening. So that's all it takes. And it's
It's
a zero
and that's
cost way.
crazy. And yeah, no, and I think you're right too. I think anyone thinking they're going to be able to time things and trade things, in their favor is naive. I think that, like you said, the big money is going to dictate a lot of this stuff, and I think that often, as is always the case, the simplest kind of buy and hold could well be the best move to make in this instance. Um, I know, and I guess I'm going to make a bold prediction here, and I know you're not big on predictions or price predictions, all of that stuff, but I want to get your reaction to this because I am, of the belief that, I mean, we've seen just how quickly the price of Hex can reach, right? We've got these catalysts coming up. We've got, testnet v3. We have mainnet announcements. We haven't heard of, a lot in terms of any and all documentaries and movies coming out, but there's going to be a lot of positive narrative coming into this space. I think we should probably touch on too the SEC getting involved in limiting their limitations they're imposing on staking, and in my opinion, that is again feeding into that narrative of the importance of a decentralized framework around your currency, and I think that's all going to be positive messaging that's going to really do wonders for PulseX, especially as well as the rest of that decentralized exchange.
Well, Gensler said it's
Environment.
not the terminology; it's the underlying economics. It's not the
Yeah,
terminology. So what they're calling staking is not what we would call staking. What we call staking is actually burning. We're not actually staking, we're burning. We're not supporting a network. We are not donating to a common pool. We're not putting it on a platform, and we're not changing custody. So what they are referring to on staking that they're cracking down is these centralized exchanges that are taking custody of your coins. You are giving to them, expecting work from them, and you're expecting profit solely from the work of others. And Hex, nobody's working for you. You're no
right.
you're not giving your coins to anybody. You are literally just running a code. So unless they're going to ban video games and every app on your phone that produces any kind of currency, or rewards you any kind of gems or tokens or anything, then I don't really see as where Hex is going to fall under security. The only difference between Hex and any other application that produces coins is that you're able to take those coins out and sell them on the open market at fair market value. That's
Right.
it. It's just an app that makes coins. So it's not staking in the sense it has none of the underlying economics under which Mr. Gensler is addressing. And the stuff that he is addressing, he should. He should.
And
He
I
should.
completely agree. And it's almost ironic and out of character if you look at it through a lens that, moving away essentially from decentralization, right? Moving away from that centralized economy, those vehicles is a little out of left field for the government. But I think that maybe that's due to them not having enough foresight as to how this decentralized kind of universe is taking form, right?
Well,
Because
because it's decentralized, you can't really do much about it. The only thing they
right.
can do is attack the centralized entities that are trying to centralize our decentralized space. And by God, they've done a good job of centralizing our decentralized space. Everybody thinks you have to pay for a listing on a centralized exchange. Everybody thinks you have to go to the coin market cap. They control the media,
Yeah.
they control the influencers, they control everything. They have literally centralized the decentralization of this space. In fact, all the coins, like I said, even Bitcoin is 42% owned by the top 2,000 wallets, and they are mostly institutional investors that have way more coins than you will ever own. And they try to market it to you as the people's coin when all actuality, it's no longer the people's coins. The banks own more than you. And that's the thing that you
Yeah.
don't get. They're just taking it over, man. They're taking it over. And the reason no one likes Hex is because this is the next step. This is the next step. You got a founder that can't be bought. Okay. You got a founder that can't be bought, and he's not interested in paying off the trolls and paying his way and trying to enter their pay-per-play system. He's doing it completely independently away from that. And the new ecosystem that we're building will be standalone. The new ecosystem will be standalone. It has its own on and off ramps. You will not have to go
Yeah.
through these centralized entities any longer to have to purchase your crypto. You don't have to play on their side of the road, their side of the tracks anymore. Don't you think they're going to want to stop that? It's the same thing, just like the banks. So if they can't destroy it, they will try to control it. And that's what happened with Bitcoin was they couldn't destroy it. Now they control it. The ETFs, the leverage trading platforms, all of this stuff that they brought in is to tame Bitcoin. They told you they were going to tame Bitcoin. And now only
Yeah.
two entities actually get the new coins. It ain't you. You ain't getting the new coins. If you want new coins, you got to give it to one of their centralized platforms. You got to ask somebody else for yield. You can't produce it yourself. You're not a producer, you're a consumer.
Totally agree. And honestly, a lot of that reasoning is why I sometimes will play devil's advocate, or maybe take issue with folks who suggest that this ecosystem isn't or won't be somewhat decorrelated from the rest of the crypto world. And I think these are all indicators that we can, and I'm not saying in its entirety. I mean, thus far, we followed the cycles in pretty much every project, right, to a certain extent. Hex maybe has veered from that in the past, and I think this hype cycle aside, I think that it has a real chance of going into a whole new kind of realm where it's not so dictated by institutions, because Bitcoin is, like you said, a lot of the institutional money and governance, or at least the big market makers are already well into that. And so with a new ecosystem now, certainly for the time being, we have a new ecosystem coming to fruition. Like you said, with Richard Hart not being bought off, he's kind of its own, he's definitely his own man. And I think that there's a lot of runway to be had out of the gates from this ecosystem to almost kind of put itself apart from all these control effects and be in control of his own destiny for a certain extent, which again, feeds into more of this positivity, not just for Hex, but for the rest of the ecosystem too. It's this kind of stuff. The writing is on the wall for me, right? The writing is there in terms of it's not just going to be the early adopters or the older heads in crypto that are going to understand the importance of what it is to be decentralized, what it is to be, separated. A lot of those old selling points, as I mentioned earlier, are going to be better understood, and folks are going to put a lot more interest and impact on that. And that in itself is going to drive a lot of economic energy into this ecosystem. And I think that, many folks out there who seem to have changed their tune about all things Richard Hart over the last, year, as we've kind of been waiting for things to launch, they're not as gung-ho as they used to be. I'm getting the sense they'll probably pick up that momentum and that energy as we get closer. But in my mind, we've got so many reasons right now to be even more bullish than we were perhaps thinking before. And so, I love all of this. I just noticed we have quite a few. This is, by the way, a record for me so far. 227 people watching.
Smash the likes, give Mr. Ben a sub. We're going to talk
Dude.
about Ben now. So Ben, what first attracted you to Hex? What made you say, this thing's going to work? I like this thing.
I will tell you. So a lot of, and those familiar with some of my background, I spent many years trading, and then I kind of gravitated to a VC, the VC realm, really working within an innovative fringe tech space. The kind of time when I was kind of getting into VC, the VC world, the software as a service was really kind of becoming the go-to industry, right, for a lot of investments. And so I saw firsthand the vetting system that we used to employ when looking at new projects. The first thing you want to see is, in general terms, what is the potential here, right? You break that down by, applicable market, obviously looking at the industry it's in, and then you start looking for unique selling points. Ultimately, again, to make a long story short, that can feed heavily into that market, that networking effect. And so, aside from strong leadership, team, and all of those kind of buzzwords that you would traditionally think about when it comes to traditional companies, Hex, when I'm looking at the community, that's essentially, the employees. We don't get access to developers. We don't get access to a lot of the workings behind the scenes, aside from really one or two developers, if we can trust that they're developers.
But Hex is complete. So that's the thing there.
That's the thing too.
Done. It was a cartridge, basically. It's a cartridge. You take your cartridge, you plug it in your game system. They take your computer, you take your cartridge and stick it in another game system. It's unstoppable, immutable code, always does what it's supposed to do. No devs to talk to.
And I think that I'm not going to claim to be one of the early adopters in Hex. I got, really, I'm conservative in my approach a lot of the time. And I'm still bullish about Hex. And so, looking at we've already had a litmus test. Does this tech work? Does the idea behind it work? Does this, narrative of delaying your gratification? Does, thinking of cryptocurrency in a different way and turning that into a passive income vehicle? These are all things that Hex has done the best so far. And I think that, as we start looking at the path forward in Hex, I think again, and I'm going to revert back to some of the things I said earlier about, a massive network effect coming, it feeding into a lot of the relevant, unique selling points and things that, are really going to play larger and larger narratives in the upcoming cycles. Hex is positioned very well. And so, again, I got more vested into Hex. I was aware of it before, but I got more vested and certainly a lot more gung ho when Pulse Chain was announced, right? Lucky enough to get into the sacrifice, same as PulseX. And so, these in my mind were the kind of the icing on the cake, because where a lot of people are thinking, oh, wow, we missed the big run up to Hex. And, perhaps we're late to the game. We'll look for the next shiny new object in the next bull cycle. To me, these catalysts are the thing that's really going to let the cat out of the bag. I think that, we've garnered a lot more interest, myself included, from the rest of this ecosystem being announced. And so as we start waiting for this whole ecosystem to come into play, I can just see the writing on the wall again. The same way we were analyzing tech companies in various industries and really kind of getting a sense for just how much potential there is. And this, there are a lot of indicators, right? There's a lot of indicators and flags that companies and entities and projects give off that, all added together should give you a varying success levels, right? And so to me, Hex, Pulse Chain, PulseX, they're all pointing in one direction. And it's funny because, even looking at some of the analogies that you make about the elevator door and whatnot, it's so obvious. It's so obvious to me. And I get frustrated when people ask me if it's too late or whether they should sell now that they've, they got in at the latest bottom of the market. And so that they want to sell out at some point when it makes sense. And we haven't seen anything yet. And so the runway left really got me into Hex. And especially now, it's, the reason I started my channel is because, much the same as you, if something makes sense and you've seen this play out in so many different ways, well, it's almost a responsibility to tell people about it. And I'm not going to sit on the fence and tell people that, it could go up, it could go down. To me, all evidence points to a very fruitful,
over
time
time.
ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
over
for sure.
time.
And I think that, I also think that time horizons are going to be important. I also think that Hex, both short or all short, midterm, and long term holds are going to be fantastic for everyone, let alone, the rest of the ecosystem. And so, I was really excited about the fact that I could get involved in a project and projects that have had somewhat of a litmus test. They're now tenured in the market, meaning that they're not a fly by night first project, first time coming in and may rug. They may, we may be looking at kind of some empty wallets, further down the road.
6 months to a
We've
year, man. 6 months to a year. Nothing usually, if it's gonna go under,
no,
it's usually 6 months to a year and it's just gone. And we're in year
and
4 now. So
yeah, totally. And so yeah, I'm super excited, and I think that I think also I was listening to Walrus. I think was talking about this not so long ago, where he was mentioning that while talking about what we think is going to happen over the next couple months, even right, and a lot of the folks who are into Hex now, right, as we start getting up to the launch of the rest of this ecosystem, they've already experienced big returns. A lot of them, that new sudden wealth syndrome.
you
So
don't say.
many holders have got it out of their system, right? I think he was saying that they bought their car, they've bought their mom's house, they've done so many things, and so there is even more stabilization potentially to be had by a lot of older, more veteran heads within this community, holding for a lot further down the road. And so it's again, it's setting itself apart from the rest of the crypto world and
The
putting itself in the same category as an Ethereum or Bitcoin, which most people it's the go-to for them.
the thing with Hex is the whole point of Hex is to never not hold Hex. That's the thing with
Yeah.
Hex. So if everybody participates under those principles that they always want to hold some Hex, eventually the supply gets smaller, guys, because everybody's got to hold some, right? So, but that, Hex breaks the lump sum mentality because crypto traders, what they do is they sell it all at the high price and buy it all at the low price, and sell it all at the high price and buy at the low price. It's an all in, all out lottery lump sum mentality. And what Hex actually teaches you is to ration yourself over time,
Yeah.
to pick your price points. not be in a position where you have to sell is where you want to be. You don't want to be over leveraged to where you are forced to sell for power bills, right? You want to be in a position where you are comfortable with leaving it alone. And if you take Hex off the market, you leave it alone, and everybody takes Hex market, leaves it alone, and you only take what you need, it's a great system. But if you try to play it just like everything else, you're going to get the same results as everything else. So it has the potential to do other things by using the system and utilizing as it's designed and always being in a position. I like to tell people, they're like, well, how high do you think X is going to go? I'm like, well, first of all, here's my entry point. Uh, Here's my destination. I don't really care what happens in between.
Same.
Second of all, I don't know how high the price is going to go, but what I do know is I will have a very large bag when it gets there because I'm not going to give away all of my coins thinking it's all over because this has something. This has the potential to continue to go on and on and on and on and do like you said. Not everything's going to be a Bitcoin. Not everything's going to be an Ethereum. These things come once in a lifetime. Okay, once in
Yeah.
a lifetime, these things come along. Really, everything else is usually being built for money. And people are like, well, Richard said it was built for money. Yeah, but Richard said that for your benefit. Richard
Yeah.
wants to build a monument. Richard wants to be Satoshi. He's kind of tired that this anonymous guy is getting all this credit, and then he's not even there to accept his bows, right? And Bitcoin again was great because it solved the double spend issue. Byzantine general, whatever. Uh, it was great for that, but that was that innovation. Ethereum was great because it allowed smart contracts to be programmed, and Hex is great because it's utilizing all the functionality of the smart contracts to make immutable code that earns you trustless yield, which was something that had not been done before. And it's a self-balancing system that has all kinds of interesting parts to it that people don't understand. But what do they say? They say it's a Ponzi, and you go, okay, fine, it's a Ponzi. So tell me how the new users pay the old users. I'd like to know because that's not how it works. It's just a code that makes coins. Oh, but it's a
Do you?
pyramid. Okay, all right, it's a pyramid. All right, would you like to point out the levels for me? Because pyramids have levels, and this is the flattest damn pyramid I've ever seen. Anything else for me? And they repeat this again. So since they don't know, they make these fan fiction stories up of what they think it is because they're not taking the time to actually look at it. It's amazing. They rather believe what they want to believe than to take the 5 minutes to look at it and find out that the reason they don't recognize it is because they're trying to compare it with other things that they've seen, and this is something new.
Totally. And you were around a lot longer than me in the Hex community. Have you seen a dilution of that scam kind of mentality since, when it started? I imagine it was a lot stronger then. But to
Oh
you,
God, dude!
have you,
Day
are you still
one,
seeing
day
as much?
one, we had like a whole launch of influencers, and on launch day, Richard was in a room, in a chat room with a Tone Vase and his attorney buddies, where they were just basically, trying to have a gangbang and beat him up with everything, trying to get him to say things and just trying to, anything they could to, flood it. And on that day, Hex was one Satoshi. And on that
Yeah.
day, I was clicking my buy button with rage. But nonetheless, uh, we've been the first year was rough. Everyone's like, I wish I was a year one Hexagon. Do you? Would you have made it? Would you have had the
So many
fortitude to make
emotions,
it?
so much
Because
anxiety.
we were attacked every day. We were individually called scammers. We were called scammers. We were called Richard's bots. We're paid. Oh, we're gonna hurt people. We're doing damage. I mean, it was awful. We were attacked, and really, Discourse Syndicate that everybody's familiar with. RG started that. We kind of started that kind of like a therapy group. I'm gonna be honest. It was like, hey, this thing looks like it's gonna kind of sort of work. You want to talk about it? Because I think it's going to work, and all I hear from everybody around me is how it's going to fail, and Richard's going to steal all my money, and it's like I need a little therapy here. Can we just get together for a beer? And that's kind of where Discourse Syndicate kind of
Yeah.
started. Was a couple guys and they wanted to put their necks out there and have a conversation about it. You know, uh, it was like our
Yeah.
support group, really. I mean, it's changed since then. Everything's changed, and we've had a lot of
Of
things spin
course.
off from that, and people have gone their own directions and everything. But really, it was really just trying to find out if we were crazy or not.
And
Because
the fortitude needed to keep vigilant, right? I mean, that's to be respected, because I'm sure a lot of people didn't go through that kind of fire period, and then
oh
they're
no,
obviously they're now celebrating.
we had we've had over 13 scam coins. We've had applications that stole people's money. We still got people in the community floating around doing the same kind of bullshit they've been doing, But the point is that yeah, we don't need coin in the month club here, guys. Seriously, we don't need coin in the month club. So we had a lot of stuff. We had our biggest influencer that actually had a following at the time because nobody knew who any of us were. Right, our biggest
Yeah.
influencer at the time turned coded and went off and made his own coin after selling before big payday and encouraging everybody to dump their bags before big payday because they uh, told us that Richard was going to dump and he was going to rug pull and the SEC was coming to get us and everything else. I mean, it was massive fun and he took like half with him. And then we had another clone come along. It was called Hexy, and that took half our community. So our community's been like
I remember
divided in
that.
half several times as a result of some of these things, people that you wouldn't even hear of. We had a trader who came on and he supported that other copy token that the other guy came off, and he attacked Richard live on stream and started saying, well, blah, 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 and started supporting these other coins. And it's like, where the hell did this come from? It's like you had an opportunity to sit down with the man that made you a lot of money, and what are you going to do? Spit in his face? Really? That's what
Yeah.
you're going to do?
Yeah.
And I get really frustrated about that because a lot of the influencers that have made it as far as they have, I'll say personalities, not really influencers, but a lot of the personalities in the Hex community have made it as far as they have. It's really in poor taste to spit in the man's face who made you a lot of money and got you recognized, shared out your shows, uh, promoted you,
Yeah.
right? You probably wouldn't have your following now that you do if it weren't for him. And I just think it's really disgusting. And usually you can tell when these people start throwing his name around and just start griping, and they'll turn around on us and they'll be like, well, you guys are just swinging his nuts, or you guys are just kissing butt, whatever. It's like, no, you give respect where it's due. You didn't earn
Yeah.
respect. You came in here, you got on the right ride, and you got ahead. Good for you. That's great. But guess what? Don't spit in the man's face who helped you get where you are today. That's just disrespectful. It's wrong. It shows what kind of person you are.
A very smart man too. I mean, it's easy to see Richard Hart is an intelligent person. I think that a lot of people seem to be, not so, again, not so gung ho about him as a person because of, his personality, right? Which ultimately doesn't matter. But if, can you imagine if a Richard Hart had the personality of, who's the Charles Hoskinson, for instance,
Mhm.
that, he would probably attract a bit more of that institutional money or that mindset, for instance. But my argument there is that those people are not the ones that are buying right now. I just played tennis the other day, and I may have mentioned this on a stream too. It excited me. I was talking to a lot of people who come from heavy finance, and hearing them over, we were having lunch after our game. They're for purely networking purposes, really. And hearing them talking about how much, how risky crypto is, and how it's probably better to see what's going to play out over the next couple of months and the next year or two. These are finance people waiting
Ben, what's a
until
stock?
seasonal buyers that are just going to come in and start buying up the price when we're already sitting on our positions. It was like music to my ears, because sometimes it's easy to get fooled into thinking that because you surround yourself with people who are a little bit more savvy about crypto, the crypto world in general, you start wondering if there are still the masses out there who are yet to be introduced, who are still thinking, kind of 10 years ago. And it was great to hear that, yes, they're still very much alive, and I'm totally pumped that they're still thinking that same way, because right now, people asking me, in the comments even, and I'm much the same as you. Do you think we're in a bull? Do you think we're in a bear? Do you think that the delay of the rest of this ecosystem is going to play out? I really don't care. This is all a perfect accumulation phase right now. And so if we're delayed longer, I'm going to jump up and down, because if you don't have as big a bag as you want right now, go and get a part-time job. Go and run Uber Eats. Go and do something that gives you a little bit more capital to start dollar cost averaging in, because I'm pretty confident, especially with Hex right now, it's a great buying opportunity. I'm continuing to buy, even though I consider myself to be well positioned with Hex. I'm still buying, and that's not due to me being naive and being overly bullish about where the price is going. In my opinion, I think this has a lot of runway to go, and it's unfortunately going to take a lot of people some time to realize this, and the cost is going to run away from them. Which kind of leads me into a point I was going to make. I'm gonna have a little fun here, and I know you're not kind of one about price, predictions, but I'm actually going to say that during these next couple of catalysts, up until the mainnet launch, I truly am bullish about us either reaching or surpassing the previous all-time high, which
Yep.
sounds crazy to a lot of
No,
people, but I think they're underestimating how quickly the price can move. And then, if we are delayed, which I hope to God that we are, if we are delayed even more and we kind of
once
catch the tail,
more.
yeah, if we catch the beginning of the bull market improper, let's say, if the hype kind of starts to reach its pinnacle around the same time that the bull market is kicking off in full, I think at the least there's a soft landing from any kind of depreciation in prices, and we run on into kind of newfound territory. So I'm extremely bullish, both midterm, again, short term, midterm, obviously long term. But I wanted to get your take on that too, to see if do you think that's unrealistic, or do you think that there's people are maybe underestimating just what this can do? And of course, there's no guarantees, but we're not financial advisors, but just purely based on opinion.
There is no question in my mind that Hex will not break $1. There's absolutely
Same.
no question in my mind that Hex will break $1, which is just a 2x over all-time highs. So, uh, I mean, it's funny to say that now because I remember when we were told that Hex would never break a penny because market cap would be too high. Well, they fixed that
Yeah.
for us. They just didn't count half the supply. But I mean, we were told, that Hex, it's not possible. It would have a market cap. It'd be way too high. It would never break a penny. Well, we went as high as 50 cents, and we did it on less than 100,000 stakers. I mean, we have way more people today than we've ever had.
Yep.
The numbers, yes, people have exited, but a lot more people have come in. Um, when you look at just the stable coins in general, you see that there's 100 billion. Follow me here. 100 billion in stable coins that have not actually left the market. They're one or two
Yep.
clicks away from re-entering the market when the green candles come. And the big thing for me was I've been trying to encourage people to get in now because when we do take off, it's going to be faster than any run we've ever seen because the amount of money that is so close. I mean, when you're trying to get money in, it can take you up to 10 days to get money in. By the time they get their money in, the prices are going to move so far away from you that you're not going to be able to
Totally
catch.
agree.
So,
Yep.
and that's because the smart money has not really left. It's just stabled up. And this is where market cap does come in handy, Ben, is because stable coins are showing you true market cap because that's how many coins by a stable
Yeah.
price. And that's where market
Right.
cap does come in handy. And that money, now I'm not saying it's all going into Hex because it only takes 10 million, 10 million purchase right now for Hex's price. That's what people don't understand. And you say, well, where do these people come from that have 10 million? I just posted someone on my page that's a Hexagon that's got a million right there. He could
Yeah.
just hit one buy button right now,
Oh, there is money out there.
yeah,
And by the way, it's what you asked earlier on, what kind of got me into Hex, especially, and more back into crypto than I ever have been before. I have personally, and just so everyone watching here, because I know the majority of people have modest bags, let's say, and I'm saying that relatively speaking to some of the juggernauts that are out there. I personally know, and I've talked about this in a previous video too. Throughout my career, I have been surrounded by, as we all are, right, people from different walks of life, and a lot of the money bags, right, the people who have done very well through their traditional route, a lot of the ones walking around with the most money, the biggest net worth. I have seen that transference of wealth take place before my eyes to folks who have made hundreds of millions of dollars in the last bull cycle and the cycle before that. I know some that have made tens of millions, but there are hundreds of millionaires out there, right? That, and people who have hundreds of millions, I mean by that, that should really put into perspective just how much money there is and how quickly that can be injected into the market. And somehow, especially with folks who have been around for a little while, there is a certain element of seasonal buying taking place, which is why I'm so excited for the bull market to come kind of hot on the heels after this whole ecosystem comes into play. Because I think that, like you said, there's a lot of money sat on the sidelines that hasn't left the market, that's still going to be put to use. And lots of that I see coming into what I think will be the story of the next bull cycle. And that is the Richard Hart ecosystem, Hex in particular. And there'll be a big flag flying and a lot of runaway price for folks not listening now, folks who aren't getting in and continue to get in while, we're seeing this huge run up.
And it's going to be so fast. This is going to
Yeah.
be so fast. You're not going to, everyone's just going to be standing there going, what? I don't get it. And the reason for that is because there is limited supply, and it's like musical chairs. And that's been my post, is the musical chairs, right? So there is like 30 million out there that is in the hands of Hexagon wallets. They're either waiting to buy Pulse at launch or PulseX, or they think maybe they're just going to get a cheap price on PHEX. There's all these different narratives. They were waiting for a penny. There's all these different narratives. So Hexagons themselves have pulled money out of the market. I've seen them do it. I watched them on chain do it. I see them still holding the money. They haven't put it into the bank yet. It's just sitting in their wallets. And that money could very well go back in, right? At any point in time. Any point in time. If the price starts to move away and it's caused a cascading effect, it's going to be musical chairs. They are never going to be able to replace the bag that they gave up for that money that they got out of it, because it becomes musical chairs. There's not going to be enough available hex for everybody to rush back in if they decide to. And then that's not talking about new money, or that's not talking about the the stables that are out there that might be chasing the next green candle. You can have other players come in at any time. What I like about Hex is it's the fact that you used to be many long years ago, if you won $1 million, what would you do with it? Okay, you put it in the bank and you could live off 6%, right? You live off that 6% interest, right? You get $60,000 a year if you got 6% interest, right? And then you would have money for life, right? Well, there's not a bank account that you can really do that with now. I mean, maybe there is, but hard to find or whatever. In this case, in Hex, you can make damn near 30% interest. So if you got $1 million, basically, if the price doesn't move, you're making $300,000 a year just for having that $1 million. That's a ridiculous amount of money if the price doesn't even move. Follow me here. So for people who say, why would a millionaire put his money in there? Because if the price doesn't even move, that's $300,000 a year. It sure beats 6% interest, which would be $60,000 a year. That's why. So again, I don't want the millionaires to buy Hex. I don't want them to buy it all up. I want the little guys to get in when the gas fees are cheap, so they can be holding on to some of these. So when the millionaires do come in, they get some too. So I'm not really concerned about the VCs or the big money or the institutions that are going to come in here. I want the little guys to get in while it's available to them, create a long-term plan and strategy, create a staking ladder, and make themselves financially free before people catch on. That's what I want.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I guess I want to be cognizant of your time too. I can't tell you how great it is to have you on this this channel. I wanted to, I mean, maybe one of the last things we touch on. Fast forward, let's say, a couple months, years. I think I know the answer to this, right? And I'll preface this by saying, if I'm building a nest egg for myself, if I'm building a nest egg portfolio, to me, Hex is at the center of that. I think that it's going to be instrumental in that for all of the reasons you mentioned. Fast forward this time, we've seen some big price rises. We've maybe at the point where we actually want to be at. Is Johnny Chaos looking at other tokens? Are you open to other, other ecosystems, or is the writing so strongly on the wall here that you think the opportunity cost of not leveraging that same, that same capital through the Richard Hart ecosystem, maybe you missing out?
I can answer it real simple. You only need one hammer to drive a nail.
Yeah.
You do not need a whole bunch of other tools that aren't going to do the job. And the thing that does the job best is Hex. And unless somebody comes along with something that actually is better, first of all, it's probably going to take years of development. It's not going to be something that's just going to be whipped out,
Right.
because a lot of care and design Hex. See, people don't understand this. Your next shiny object is a cut and paste code that just gets whipped out in a month. Okay, these things are not going anywhere. If they are targeted to a subset of a subset of a subset, you're not going to get any users. You know, uh,
Right.
these some of these things are just like solely dependent on the Hexagon community in order to go anywhere. And when it's all said and done, look, I people like to say, Maxi and dismiss you, but you know what? These things are not built this strong very often. And unless something is very viable, sure, I'll take a look at it. But I have to see some kind of unique value proposition. I have to see some unique coding. I have to I have to see some kind of unique marketing, something. Okay. I've seen so much that, I try not to be dismissive, because I
Right.
know, if you're always dismissive and you're always default scam, for the most part, you are going to save yourself a lot of money. On the other part of that is you risk not finding something new. But if you already found the best thing at the time, that might be enough. How many more zeros do I need to add to my account at this point? You know,
It's Warren
uh,
Buffett 101, right?
Warren
Delegation is for
Buffett,
losers. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
Warren Buffett does not need to buy Bitcoin. Why? Because he already has more money than he could ever spend. Why
Yeah.
does he need Bitcoin? He doesn't. So what I'm saying is right now, your best chance for success, for a successful product at the ground level before it goes into dollars and it's no longer pennies, is Hex. That's it. And I believe that this new ecosystem, if you think you're saving for the new ecosystem, I think the best way to get into that ecosystem is to have Hex to begin with, so that you get a free copy, and that free copy can be transferred, and you can still have your Hex, and you can have some of that over there too, because I
And
think
that's
you'll
such
get a good
a
exchange rate
no-brainer
with
to me.
Hex.
Totally,
So if
totally
you want
agree. I think right now with Hex, the risk to reward ratio is very much in our favor right now, right?
yeah,
And so
I mean,
everything
look,
else
we're
is
so far at the bottom of the barrel. How, you can only go so low. So like I did the little video with the $300 when Hex was down to you know, 3 cents, right? I
right.
did a little video, $300. What do you got to lose? $100 goes down a penny. $200, it goes down 2 pennies. Still got $100. What can it go up? Well, 10,000 Hex. Every time it goes up, you add $100 bill to your pile. You know, not that I have my props here now, but
Yeah.
but you add $100 bill to that pile every time it goes up. If you got 100,000 Hex and it goes up a penny, you add $1,000. If you have 1,000,000 Hex, which is roughly about $50,000 now. But if you have a
Yeah.
million Hex, if it goes from 5 cents to 6 cents, you get $10,000. Where is your risk reward? Ratio. I mean, what does Bitcoin have to do to get you $10,000? You have to buy a whole Bitcoin, and it has to go up 50%,
And to
not a
me,
penny.
looking in, if you're looking at a Bitcoin or an
Mhm.
Ethereum, which, certainly are less speculative, probably going into the next cycle than most other tokens.
Yeah.
If you're also looking at other less speculative options, Hex is right up there with a much bigger room to run. So yeah, I mean, I completely get it, and it, and I've talked to friends, I've talked to family about the best way to get into this ecosystem. My first and foremost, piece of advice, and again, it's just opinion, but buy Hex. The second is put some stable coins aside, because I don't trust anything else right now. And so if you actually of the firm belief, and everyone's entitled to their own belief system, if they are believing that it is better to know the amount that you have to inject into, a pulse chain or a pulse X or p hex or any of the new tokens that aren't available now, fair enough. But it is, and I think we're on the same page in that buying now, I foresee your buying potential. If you still wanted to do that same thing, buying hex now and realizing the run up in price that I think we inevitably see,
And
is going to
possible
set you up
parity.
for a much stronger foundation.
And
What
possible
was that?
parity.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And that people aren't taking that into consideration either. It's possible parity. So just think about this. Okay. Take hex today at 5 cents. How many pulls do you think a 5 cent hex is worth?
Yeah. Right.
Because
Well,
it will be paired to its ETH ratio over there, right? At the 1,000,000 to 1 dilution. Okay. So one hex is going to be worth a lot of pulls day one. A lot of
yeah.
pulls.
Yeah.
Now, your USDC can be shut off. It does have admin keys. Just telling you right now, there's a lot of weird shit going on with centralized exchanges and stable coins. And you need to know that, yes, that USDC can be shut off. Is that a immediate risk? No, but it can be. And you need to take that in
Yeah.
mind. The other thing is, yes, your hex, you're getting a free copy and you will have value day one before there is a bridge. So your USDC, you're waiting 2 days before you can bridge it over to make a purchase after those ratios have already been set. So you're 2 days
Yeah.
behind the curve just for holding USDC. Second of all, when your USDC gets copied, it's not going to have the same value. So you are forfeiting that possible doubling of value that could happen with X, definitely isn't happening with USDC.
No.
So
Right.
really, and I've heard that argument. I understand that people want their set amount and they want to be able to bridge it over, but you are going to start 2 days late
Yeah.
with that
And you're
value.
going to be, you're not able to capitalize in two or three different ways. And yeah, I mean, again, it's a no brainer to me and to us. And I probably know the answer to this too, but in terms of that ratio trading phase, I'm assuming you're going to get involved in that at all? Are you going to try to spin the wheel?
Uh, I'm going to observe.
You may be
See,
one of the
again,
only people who maybe have enough experience to make the right call. Most people, I don't think, will. So,
well,
me
that's just
included,
it.
I'm staying out of the way.
That ratio trading is very dangerous. Ratio trading is
Yeah.
very, very dangerous. And that's part of the reason why I don't tell people a lot of stuff, because if you tell them things that are complex and they only understand half of it, they still get wrecked. Or if they understand half of it and they're confused and they get scared and they get fearful, right? So it's there's kind of a thing where you got to kind of moderate the amount of information that you put out there, because again, if you say, oh, the Ethereum side is going to dump to a penny, what does people do? People dump all their
Yeah.
Ethereum hacks, right? And then
Yep.
what happens? That penny does happen. Why? Because everybody got scared, they dumped it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But what I'm telling you is the best way to preserve the Ethereum side is to create that one-to-one pairing between hex and ehex, and create that pairing so that you can just transfer across bridge, universal
Wrap
conduit,
it. Yeah.
and it costs the OA nothing. It costs the OA nothing. It's on a bridge that it's on a bridge that is being built for that ecosystem. If that bridge can't be trust, what bridge can be, right? So
Yeah.
there is no reason not to utilize that. There's no reason not to take just like 10 billion hex out of the 500 billion whatever the OA owns, 10 billion of that 500 billion, and then pair it up, because you got the free copies on the other side too. Just pair it up one to one. Create a universal conduit. It preserves the Ethereum side. It allows the universal conduit between chains. So if people want to move cross chain, they can buy hex and then move it over to the Ethereum side, sell their hex, and buy whatever they want on the Ethereum side, right?
It
So
has to be
create
in
a
mind for him
universal
already,
conduit.
right? For that OA. It has to be in mind for him. I mean, it
Yeah.
would, it just makes total sense.
And it creates a stable liquidity pool so that others
Yep.
can match that liquidity pool and earn hex for ehex and phex. They can earn them both. Now, it won't be at the same rate as
No.
staking hex, and it shouldn't be. In fact, the fact those pools need to be large, because those pools aren't large, and that there's no reason to stake hex anymore, right? So if you leave those pools too small and people can do that and they can earn more not staking, then they would just leave it in the liquidity pool and they wouldn't stake it all and use the function for what it's worth. If that's the case, then guess what? The stakers get paid more because the staking pool goes down. So there's all these cool interactions. So no matter where people shift, your best bet, no matter what, is still staking and holding your damn hex.
For sure. And honestly, that may be a perfect point to leave things on. I mean, I think that, and by the way, we have almost 300 people here, which is absolutely great. So please show your appreciation for the man himself. Hit the like, subscribe to my channel too. I'd be happy to have you as part of my community, and I hope to have Johnny on more in the future. I know he's coming to an end on his tour, and everyone seems to be reaping the rewards of some of the gold that you've been putting out there, and I'm certainly no different. So are there any other kind of, you planning any more videos, any more tours in the future?
Not really. I want you guys to go follow Ben here. He brings up some very interesting questions. He's a very thoughtful guy, and you need to like and subscribe and follow him. You need to follow him and listen to him so you can listen to me less. And also, you guys, I know you did a show with Crypto Coffee.
Yep.
I think Matt is a great guy. We share a lot of the same perspectives and stuff. And guys, make sure you go spend some time following Crypto Coffee. There's lots of smart people here. There are
Yeah.
lots of people to follow, but the important thing is that you take this information, okay? You apply it yourself, and you don't look for somebody to follow. You become the leader you're looking for. That's what's important. I want you guys to become your own leader. Don't hang on everybody's words. Don't look for somebody to tell you what to do. You need to be responsible for your own decisions and be the leader that you want to be.
Perfect ending. Totally agree. Well, again, thank you for coming on. I hope this is there's more to come for certainly the conversations that we have. Keep putting out the gold on Twitter. I know I've mentioned it before, but I will continue to retweet. It's so easy when I look at your tweet and I think, I don't have to say it. He's saying it perfectly and better than I can. So love it. And thanks again. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I hope everyone else has too. I will also put this up for everyone who may have missed this too. So if you're watching this back, again, please enjoy and hit the like. But Johnny, a pleasure, man. I look forward to the next time and to listening to wherever you may be.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks, everyone. Bye.